Matt, what do you think your biggest concern is if you're a player, seeing how this reported agreement looks right now with the date and the escrow stuff?
I just think the fact that, key people made a long run into the playoffs, obviously into the bubble, to win a championship, in particular LeBron James. And, we're creatures of habit, and 2020 has taught us anything but normalcy. So the fact that guys are going to have to come back early, I think load management is going to be a key theme for the first month or two, and people are just going to have to understand that, because at the end of the day, we saw great playoffs this year, very high energy and great competition. And if we want that this upcoming season, these guys are going to have to somehow find some time to rest.
Yeah, I think you're right on it, Matt. LeBron James, who will be 36 years old next month, averaged 39.8 minutes a game over the final 5 games of that final. Now, by the way, Jimmy Butler averaged 44.7 minutes a game over those final 5 games. Why? Because they're like, look, I'll sleep later. I'll sleep when I'm dead, like Warren Zevon used to say, because they thought they were going to have a nice long rest to get ready for the next season. Now that isn't the case. So I worry not just about load management, I worry about injuries, Rachel, because the flip side of this is someone like Klay Thompson, who had a torn ACL. He hasn't played in something like, 17 months or something crazy like that. There's a lot of players who haven't played in several months, over a year in some cases, and you worry about them as they come back. So you have these players all at different points of their conditioning and their off-season regimen. And we know, like, you take someone like LeBron, who does everything to the T, this is going to mess up the way he likes to prepare himself for a season, and he's certainly not going to be the only one.
Yeah, and that's such a good point about the variation between players. You can take a look at these numbers. The proposed December 22nd start would mean a gap of only 72 days from Game 6 of the NBA Finals. So that's for the Heat and Lakers, right? But less than 3 months for the conference finalists from Denver, right, and Boston. But then keep going, right? Because you've got non-bubble teams. They'll have had 6 more months off than the Final 4 teams. You've got the teams that only made it right through the seeding games and didn't make it even into the playoffs. Look at them, right? You've got bubble but no playoffs, 129 days, lost in the conference finals, 86 days, made the finals 72 days. That is a huge swing. How do you expect that, Jackie, to affect the different teams in those different positions?
I do, and it'll be very interesting. I'm sure all the coaches who haven't played for a really long time have spent most of that time trying to figure out how they can best maximize the idea that rest is going to be their friend, as opposed to some of these other teams who are going to be trying to figure out how to rest their players while the season is going on. It's going to be very interesting to see how different teams approach this, because I think it's going to be very different for each case.
I completely agree with that, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead in the show, but this is why I think it's a great idea to add the play-in games later, because we're going to have to consider injury. It takes a lot of luck. Some teams might be late starting that had a long run into things. So I think if we get a chance to play those play-in games with that 7 through 10, as we're going to discuss later, forgive me for jumping ahead, I think it's going to do a lot of teams some justice, because it's going to take some teams time to get over injury and catch their rhythm. And normally they would be out of the playoffs in those kind of situations. But hopefully with the play-in game, which we all enjoyed this season in the bubble, it's going to give some of those teams, it's going to take a little bit longer to get their engine started, a chance to still make the playoffs.
Matt Barnes, I have no problem with you teasing what's going to come up later in the show, so viewers stay tuned. That is excellent television. And I would just add this to the sort of things to be concerned or think about as we march forward with this new agreement. We talk about the TV deals being important, right? And it's not just us here at ESPN. It's TNT, it's the regional sports networks that need 70 games to make their contracts, things like that, because that is going to be the NBA's source of money, right? But what those games look like on TV is going to be important if you want the ratings that bring in the advertising revenue, right? What made them look good in the bubble was all these virtual fans, right? It was the arenas with these huge video boards around that didn't make you see all those empty seats all the time. I don't know what arenas are going to do from place to place to make these games look on TV to some degree like they looked in the bubble. Some states, as we showed earlier, can have between 25 and 500 people in the building. Are they going to put them in suites? How would that affect video boards? Are they going to try to have some people courtside? This is all going to be a factor. Once you get this deal done, it's kind of like planning the bubble. Once you get the first part done, that just brings up 10 more questions on each branch of the tree of how are we now going to do this? How are we now going to do that? And there's still still work to do ahead of maximizing these games that you've got on your schedule, so this league, like so many businesses across America at different valuations, can stay afloat as America goes through this pandemic. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.